Hello and welcome back. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at the Flexible widget. Now you'll notice here my homepage has a scaffold. The scaffold has an app bar widget, and then in the body it has a column widget. Now you'll notice the column has 3 children, and these are a red card, a green card and a blue card. You'll notice these arranged vertically from top to bottom in the column in the application running in the Android emulator. Now essentially the Flexible widget is similar to the Expanded widget if you've watched that episode. However, the difference between the two is that the Flexible widget is allowed to shrink its size. To show this in the example, I'm going to wrap this first card in a Flexible widget, and you'll notice when the app hot reloads that nothing changes over here in the emulator. Now this is because by default the Flexible widget has a fit property of loose. This essentially means that the Flexible widget is allowed to shrink to fit the height of its child. So in this case you'll see how the red card has a height of 100 pixels, and the Flexible widget, because it's allowed to shrink, will still have a flex value of 1, but it will shrink down to the height of its child, 100 pixels. And that's why the card dimensions don't change over here in our running application. Now, if we apply the Flexible widget in much the same way to these other cards, as I'm sure you can probably tell already, when this application hot reloads, nothing will change in our running application. Once again, because the Flexible widget allows itself to shrink based on the constraints, the height in this case, of the child, which is the red card with a height of 100 pixel, the green card with a height of 100 pixel, and a blue card with a height of 100 pixel. Now, if we were to replace one of these Flexible widgets with an Expanded widget, which is covered in more detail in another episode, you'll notice how the Expanded widget takes up as much height as possible to a flex of 1. Now, if you've had a look at the episode featuring the Expanded widget, you'll notice how by default the Expanded widget filled the entire height. However, because we've introduced these Flexible widgets with a flex value of 1, it means that the Expanded widget, which also has a flex value of 1, will only expand to fill essentially 1/3 of this height. We have 3 cards, each with a flex of 1, so that's 1, 2, 3, meaning that the height, because it's a column running from top to bottom, means the height is split up into thirds, and so with this green card being expanded, it will fill 1/3 of the height. Likewise, if we introduced flex 2 to that Expanded widget, you'll see there essentially how it grows slightly, because we've then got 1, 2, 3 and 4. So we're essentially splitting the height up into quarters, with this Expanded widget taking up 2 quarters, or a half. If we moved the flex property onto one of these flexibles, flex 2, you'll notice how the Expanded shrinks, because we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4, so we are once again splitting up into quarters. However, the Expanded is only taking up 1/4, so essentially 25% of the height available. Of course, as you saw from the Expanded episode, if we were to remove these Flexible widgets, then the Expanded would fill the entire height available. So you can use the Flexible widget alongside the Expanded widget to have a much finer grained control over the positioning and layout of your widgets. much the same as you would using the flex properties such as flex grow and flex shrink in CSS if you're coming from a traditional web development background. So essentially, the key difference to take away between a flexible widget and an expanded widget is that by default, the expanded widget fills up as much height as possible, being greedy, whereas the flexible widget allows itself to shrink if the height of its child is smaller. So essentially, the expanded will fill all the width available regardless, whereas the flexible widget will allow itself to shrink. As I say, I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.